Hey, small group leaders, this is Pastor Nick from Trinity Kimberly Way, and I'm here with another coaching video on how to use the spiritual life assessment in the context of your small group. The spiritual life assessment is something that we have developed to help people identify where they need to grow in terms of their walk with Jesus and how to take that next step. You guys may remember that we as a church have 7 values that we put on every single one of our membership covenants. That when people say, how do I learn to look, live, and love more like Jesus, we point to these 7 values as Jesus behaviors. These are the things that we do in order to grow in our walk with Christ. And where these come from is really by looking at the life of Jesus and the life of his disciples and saying, what were the different values that he cultivated within them that we can then model and put into place in our own lives? So that's where they come from. And the spiritual life assessment actually allows you to go through a little assessment to identify how you're doing in each of those 7 areas, and to hopefully highlight some areas where you're not only doing well and walking well, but also areas where you could maybe take a next step and grow a little bit more. And the reason this is important is because in the Follow series, we actually give you an opportunity to take the spiritual life assessment and then sit down and talk with your group members about their results and to encourage them in taking a next step in one of those 7 areas. Where this shows up in the Follow series is in session 3 on testing your faith. And in that session, we talk a little bit about how important it is to do some self-evaluation in your walk with Christ, to say, how am I doing in every area of my life, really putting Jesus at the center, allowing his grace to guide and to shape who I am as a Christian. And specifically on pages 46 to 48, as you come to the end of the study and you enter into the application and plan portions, we have people do a self-assessment in which they look at these 7 values and they give themselves a score. But then we encourage them to take the spiritual life assessment to maybe highlight where there are some blind spots, and hopefully then meet with someone to talk about the results and identify a clear next step. And that's where you come in as a small group leader. Our expectation is that each of the small group leaders will have that kind of one-on-one meeting with each person in their small group. At the very least, they will have identified a discipler within their group who will help them do that. And the reason why we want that to happen is because we want everybody in every single small group to feel like they've at least had one opportunity to sit down across the table from someone and to really receive some encouragement and some accountability and some support in taking a next step. So as they come to the end of session 3 and they're entering into the apply and plan portion, they're going to give themselves a score for each of those 7 values, and then they can take the spiritual life assessment to see, was I on track? Is there anything that I've missed, anything that I've overlooked, and how can I take a concrete next step to grow in that particular area of my walk with Jesus? So what I'd like to do with this video is show you, number 1, how to find the assessment, number 2, what it looks like as they take it, and then number 3, to talk a little bit about what can you then do once your group members take the actual assessment. So to help you find it and show you how to take it, I'm actually going to share my screen with you so you can see a little bit about where to look in order to find this. So let me go ahead and get my screen up here. All right. So here we are in your group page. So for you as a leader to find the spiritual life assessment, you're going to go to the resources tab in the groups platform, and you're going to notice that there's actually a document in there called Important Links for Follow. And if you download that document, it's got all the links, including a link to the spiritual life assessment. Your group members can also find this document. And that's by going to your group page, and if they scroll to the bottom of their group page, there are these 2 tabs, one for members and one for resources. If they click on the resources tab and they scroll down a little bit, they're going to again find that same document called Important Links for Follow. Now if they click on that document, it's going to open it up as a PDF, and you'll notice that there is a link right here. First link is the spiritual life assessment. If they click on that link, it's going to take them to the assessment, and the assessment page looks like this. So they'll have to fill in first and last name, their email address, and the name of their group leader, so that you want to make sure that they put your name in there. And why that's important is because we want to ensure that not only will they get a copy of their results, but that the coaches can then let the group leaders know, hey, so-and-so took the spiritual life assessment. Please be sure to sit down with them and talk through those results. So I'm going to go ahead and just type my name in here so you can kind of see what happens next. So I put in my first and last name, my email address. My small group leader right now is Matt Hawk. I'm going to select my site. This is the primary site they attend. So Kimberly Way is my site. And then it's going to say Kimberly Way Coaches. And the reason this is important is because not only do your members get a copy of their results, but the coaches get a copy of the results. And that's the way that they know, hey, this person did take the spiritual life assessment, and they can pass those on to you as a small group leader. So right now I'm the only coach for Trinity Kimberly Way at this time. So I select my name, then I hit next. And then what you're going to find is there's a series of several pages where there's some multiple choice question and answer, and there's also some short answer. So for example, over the past 3 months, my monthly average for participation in worship at Trinity is 4 times, because I'm the site pastor. Hopefully I'm there at the very least. But they go through all these questions, and they actually have an opportunity to write further comments about this section. Then they go to next, and they just walk through this until they've completed the entire assessment. And then once they're done, they will automatically get an email for their results. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. So once they've taken that assessment, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes. It's not very long, a pretty short assessment. But at the end, what they're going to get is they're going to get a score on a scale of 1 to 4, 4 being really good, 1 being an area that maybe needs some work. And then in their results, they'll also see all the responses, how they responded under each value, as well as any comments that they made. So what do you do with that assessment once you have it? Well, first and foremost, you want to make sure that your people get a one-to-one meeting with someone, that they sit down with either you or the discipler in their group, maybe over coffee, and they just say, what did you learn after taking the spiritual life assessment? Was there anything that surprised you? Anything that stood out? And then you want to ask them the question, so based on your results, where do you think you need to take a next step? And really the best next step is the one that they have identified and the one that they're willing to commit to taking a next step in. Now, in terms of actually taking a next step, this is where they're really going to need your help as a leader. Because they're going to, you want to help them get as specific as possible and know where they can get resources to help them succeed in this area. So for example, if a person realizes they scored low in the generosity area and they want to take a next step saying, maybe I want to increase my giving by 1%, or I realize that in order to increase my giving, I need to get my finances under control. Your job as a small group leader is to say, well, how do you see yourself doing that? And if they get stuck, to help them get connected to resources. So for example, if I sat down with you and I said, hey, I'm a little low in the generosity area, but I really want to commit to getting my finances in order so that I can give more to the mission. Then your job as a small group leader is to say, okay, well, how do you see yourself doing that? And if I'm stuck, to say, well, here are a couple of resources. Maybe you recommend that they go through Financial Peace University. Maybe they pick up a book on budgeting. Maybe it's just that they need to set a budget. And so you can direct them to different kinds of budgeting platforms, budgeting software. You just want to help them identify what that clear next step is, what resources are available, and then maybe help them set a goal or a target. Saying, so maybe your first step is you want to create a budget. What due date do you want to give yourself for that, so that I can check in with you and see how that's going? And you can do this for any of the other areas. So for example, if somebody comes back and they say, the share value is my lowest score, and I realize that I actually don't know many non-Christians in my life, or I know them, but they're just kind of like acquaintances, then maybe the first thing you encourage them to do is to start praying daily for those people, and to encourage them to maybe have a little prayer journal in which they just write down, who did I pray for today and what was my prayer request for them? And then as they see answers to that prayer, maybe it's that they end up having a spiritual conversation with that person, that they can write that down. Maybe it's somebody is saying, sharing actually scares me, and I realize I need some training in sharing my faith. Maybe it's then recommending a book on evangelism to them. And your coaches are here to kind of give you those resources. So if you have a person who's struggling and how to get some training in the evangelism area, come to us. We're happy to give you book recommendations, to provide some training and some support. The point is, you want to help them identify that clear next step, give them the resources they need to succeed, and then set a goal or a target, something that they can work toward and that you can pray for them for, encourage them in, and hold them accountable to. All right, that's the reason we have this tool. It's not to compare people to one another. We don't take their results and attach it to their profile in our database. None of that. This really is for them and for you to help clearly identify that next step and lean into that accountability a little bit. Accountability, hopefully, in a way that's encouraging and life-giving and actually leads to change and transformation for the members of your group. So that's the reason we've developed this tool. That's how you can use it and where you can find it. And if you have any questions about really using that tool well and how to actually meet with a person and talk with them, talk to one of your coaches. We are happy to walk you through that again and ensure that you have everything that you need to succeed as you're discipling the people in your small group community. So again, it's a great tool. We are delighted that we're able to offer it to you, and we hope and pray that you will use that in the context of your small group so that people who go through your group will actually have taken a concrete next step by the end of these 6 weeks in an area where maybe they hadn't taken a step before. That's really why it's there. Accountability, encouragement, and a clear next step. So use it well. I hope that blesses you and your group, and blessings as you continue in the Follow series.